It'll be up in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys let me know if you guys can't see very well.
All right, we are broadcasting live. There we go. 7 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is John Gwynn. I'm current mayor of Mayville. I'm running for a second term. Some key points that I want to bring to the audience is to let them know that this open forum event is intended to have all of the mayoral candidates in attendance so that we could all answer questions on an impromptu basis, which I think yields positive results for the voters so that they can really get a strong understanding of candidates' positions, their ability to present, their ability to think on their feet and provide open, honest communication to the public. So I want to make it clear two things. Number one, every candidate was invited. It's unfortunate that Mr. Tillman and Mr. Belk declined to attend. But they were invited, and I've got to say that because the question was raised, we did check with the city attorney regarding this event, and we did check with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. It is lawful to hold a candidate forum event at City Hall, so that quashes any concerns there. So with that, the format tonight, Cherie Davis has been kind enough to act as our moderator this evening. I do want to make it very clear that Cherie is not affiliated with my campaign. But Cherie, thank you so much. And one thing that I seriously admire about Cherie is she takes the time to become knowledgeable and understand, the perspective on issues, right? So it's so important to be involved on that level and take the time to become informed. And Cherie, I really admire you for doing that.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you as our moderator, and I'll let you run the show.
All right, so I am going to, sorry, I am going to start on this side, if that's okay. I was thinking going back and forth. I don't know if you guys want to hold hand or, hold a hand, who's ready to ask the question. So if anybody wants to volunteer to go first, go ahead, stand up, state your name, please.
Mark Fox.
Okay.
Okay. My question is that there was a recent notice that was put out in one of the campaign brochures that just came out to everybody's mailboxes yesterday, I believe the day before. It talked about $154,000 budget deficit for 2024. And I guess I'd like to know, what is it?
Sure, fair enough. No, it's a great question and a fair question. So as we entered into our budget process this year, as you recall, this past year we faced a ton of challenges with the city's finances. And really the issue is threefold. Number one, our accounting software had not been updated in over 8 years. So I would just say, think about your home PC, think about if you had Excel or something on your PC, you didn't install any software updates over a period of 8 years, you're going to start seeing the capabilities or capacity of the system degrade or erode over time. So coming into this year, we were limping along with an accounting system that hadn't been updated in 8 years, and the database itself was really kind of strapped together with duct tape and baling wire. The best way I can describe it. It was not reliable, it was unstable, and everything else. And then coming into my term, there was in fact, Rob Belk made mention of it during his exit letter to everybody. He said, look, the city has a $2.3 million rainy day fund. Well, the city was flying so blindly because of bad data within the system, that $2.3 million does not exist. Never exists, it's not there. We actually had a rainy day fund, or we have an appropriate or prudent lawful rainy day fund of roughly $800,000. So having said that, coming into the budget process this year, all of our systems, all of the prior budgeting templates and everything else didn't exist. And we ran out of time and we put together the budget to the best of our ability. Now that we've got good data, we're able to report that yes, there is a deficit. However, we're working with our consultant that has been helping us on the financial side to draw that down to a lower amount. Right now, the amount that the city is paying annually for insurance is just off the charts. And the first area that I see, and our comptroller treasurer is working on this with me, the first area I see to grab back some of that deficit is to look at reinsuring the city with another provider. We routinely find errors from the past that gives us the ability to pull more additional financials into the city's coffers. So for instance, there was an error having to do with an entry between the city and the water and wastewater utility that we found just 2 weeks ago. And I think the result is that the utility owes us $20,000 or something to that effect. So the point is, it's a work in progress. Nobody's good with going forward with a deficit. I'm not comfortable with that. I think there are certain things that the city has done over time I find concerning, and that is, so for instance, the tag center, which is absolutely wonderful. I mean, we have to budget for $110,000 deficit every year just to operate the tag center. And that's fine. We found a way to make that work. In the past year, we've had the new library come online. The new library, the operational expense in maintaining that library is astronomical. I mean, our cleaning bill alone has gone to over $30,000 a year just for that library. So there's a delta there that's pretty significant. So, so yeah, I'll stop there, but great question, and I hope I provided the answer.
Okay. Can you state your name as you?
My name is Carla Hagan, and I recently went on the Mayville City website, looking for agendas for council meetings, and I noticed that down in the kind of the lower right-hand corner, there was a little tab that says Mayor's Corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I clicked on that, and I saw that there was published the results of a recent employee survey.
Correct.
And our city employees, I believe, are very integral to the operations of the city. And I read through the comments that were made, and I found them very, very interesting. And I would urge anyone who hasn't read those comments to please do so. But the basis was that there was questions how the city employees felt about their jobs, wages, benefits, their working relationship with the people in within City Hall here, who were at that time, it would have been mayor and older persons. I believe this was probably taken, the survey was taken late last year, so there has been some changes, but I did find the comments to be very, very interesting. And I would like to know how, if elected mayor, you intend on addressing some of these concerns that the employees voiced in their comments as far as their jobs and their working relationship with the city government.
Sure, thank you, great question. Yeah, I believe that employee survey provided a lot of valuable data. And also provide a lot of value to the city employees, because a constant theme or a consistent theme I hear is that they don't feel that they're heard necessarily by the common council, in terms of they'll bring things to the council's attention And from their perspective, I've heard the comments that it seems like they received some lip service. Hey, thanks for telling us your concerns. And then it gets put on the back burner and nothing changes. And there's excellent evidence to support that claim. If you look at our city employee manual, it hasn't been updated and it needs to be updated. There's some topics in there that just need to be updated and current. So updating the employee manual is certainly high on the priority list. Now, nobody on this council, I would say, has the fundamental background in HR that would give the council the ability to sit around for 2 hours and put together a new, so my point is, I don't think we build it from scratch. What's interesting is we partner with a lot of different firms and they offer value-added services. So for instance, as we look at the city's insurer, there's a couple of options. First of all, our insurer currently does not deal with municipalities. It's highly irregular. I've talked with a lot of different cities. I don't know how we ended up with the insurer that we're with, but we have those that are available through the Wisconsin League of Municipalities and others that are specific to municipalities. And those are the next things that we're going to work on. My point there is they offer services as well, where they can come in and help us with an employee manual or guide us to doing, making changes that are meaningful to the employees. So update the employee manual, that's got to be a top priority. Secondly, I believe that the survey was really constructive, right? Having the ability to hear directly from the most valuable asset to the city, its employees, and what they're happy about, what they're dissatisfied with. And you've got to look at, if you read it, and please do, if you read it, it's completely objective. I get hammered by a couple of people on that survey. Everybody does, but I also get a lot of, good feedback as well. And so did a number of the alderpersons. A couple of the alderpersons got just completely panned. So to that point, the next issue that I want to raise is a policy for the Common Council for elected officials, a code of conduct, an ethics policy. There are cities around the state that have implemented these, and if you'll look, there's an example that's going to be presented at next week's personnel committee meeting. There's an example from the city of Green Bay, and the city of Green Bay has a policy around code of conduct for their elected officials, and it stipulates or articulates how they should address fellow elected officials, how they should conduct themselves with members of the public, and how they should conduct themselves with people that choose to make a career working at the city of Mayville. I do want to state it is absolutely not fair, not right in any way, shape, or form, from my perspective, for an elected official inside the city of Mayville to go on Facebook and write a 3-page post flaming out any of our employees that work here. Because what's not fair about that is in our employee manual, they're not allowed to engage on Facebook on controversial matters. And a lot of our city employees feel that their hands are tied behind their back when they take flack online from elected officials that are attacking them personally and critiquing their job performance. That's not right. It's not fair.
Okay, next question. Go ahead.
Hi, Marty.
State your name.
Martin Stafford.
Hi, Marty.
What was the process that we used to find the candidates for the new positions for the aldermen?
So the city put out, so there's two sides of that equation, right? So we had 3 openings for aldermanic positions, and those openings were there for, 2 openings were there for several months. And we put ads in the paper, we put notices on Facebook, encouraging people to come in. Every person that was elected by vote of the Common Council members submitted a letter of interest and came in and interviewed with the council, and they were voted on by the council. The other part of that equation is, as many of you likely know, we had an issue. We've got a couple of council members that are currently serving a suspension until their hearing, with a public hearing, where they'll be able to speak to the claims that have been made against them. The council will then be able to vote to either reinstitute or they could vote for removal. When I had the openings, when those openings occurred, I had to go into the community, speak with people that were interested in serving on a very short-term basis with a very narrow scope, which is we've got to keep the city business running. Period, end of story. So I appointed a person from Ward 6, which was Nick Lodahl, and I also appointed a person from Ward 5, which was Nick Fiscal. And they both done a great job, taking it very seriously, doing the research that they need to do, conducting themselves very well. And everybody has a firm understanding that, it's as a part of that process and timeline. It's a temporary role that they're serving. One of the things I really like is when people not only bring problems forward and say, hey, we've got to fix this, or hey, I'm not okay with this, but they also offer solutions. So when I think of, say, Nicholas Lodahl came forward and said, you know what, this isn't right, we need to change it, and I'm willing to do what it takes to help out while we find a permanent solution. A problem in this city is, apathy, meaning people don't want to get involved. And why don't they want to get involved? There's probably a myriad of reasons, but one of the reasons is just the conduct they receive from people online. I mean, I think one of the most common fears in life, people don't want, public ridicule. I mean, that's probably everybody's or many people's greatest fear. And I think it prevents good people from being willing to come forward and do the work. So it is always ideal for the process and the system to work where people are coming forward, they're running a campaign like all the mayoral candidates are, and they go to election day and the voters decide. But at the end of the day, as mayor, I've got to make sure that the city continues to operate. And if two people decide that they want to prevent the city from operating, it is my obligation to make sure that the city business continues. So as you grow up and you play sports, your coaches will yell at you, you play to the whistle. I may be mayor for another few weeks, or I may be mayor for another couple of years, but I'm playing to the whistle. When my term is over, I will have worked every day at it since being elected, and that's what I committed to do. Sure.
So how do you have a plan to make the citizens feel more involved? And how?
With the process?
Just getting involved with the city itself. It seems to be a lot of business already. How can we get the businesses more involved?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one of the things I think really has to be centered around communication. I believe I've seen a shift in citizens' willingness to get involved. And it's happened over, say, just the past 6 months. So if anything, if I'm a change catalyst, and it means more people are wanting to step up to either work with me or work against me, so be it. But people are getting involved. So I think the more that we can communicate, the more types of platforms and technology we can put out to keep information going out, rolling out these OWL systems that we do, that was a quantum shift in making information readily available to people. There are apps that we're looking at. We're rolling out a new meeting minutes and planning software and being able to get the minutes out. I want everything, my vision, I want everything that we do in City Hall readily accessible to you so long as it's appropriate to be public facing. So with that, we're looking at technology, and that's a big part of next steps forward within City Hall.
Any other questions?
Sure, I have one.
All right, let's go ahead.
Ken Oxner. I know you've been interviewing for a city clerk. Can you tell us where that process is at this time?
Yes, so the city clerk role, vitally important. We've been working with a firm called PAA. It's Public Associates. I'm going to lose it, but PAA is the firm that we work with to do the search. They're vetting all of the candidates. They're doing pre-interviews and they're bringing candidates forward to interview with the council. And last week we had an interview with one candidate. We originally had 2 candidates for the job, one backed out. It's a highly competitive market, and when those jobs, when good candidates come forward, I mean, they're in short supply and high demand. So we have an excellent candidate who is considering and is very interested in coming to work for the city, reasonably so. She wants to see the outcome of the election before giving the absolute commitment, and I think that makes sense. I'm having breakfast with the candidate and PAA one morning next week, and my hope is that we will have that role filled very, very soon.
Any more audience questions? Yes, come on, step up.
You were interested in hiring an administrator. What role would they play? And would you eliminate any of the other jobs to make up for the fee that we will be increasing for that administration?
Yep. So it's interesting. I am for the city moving forward with somebody who is in like a chief administrative capacity. If that is a city administrator and that's their sole role, and they focus on things such as grants and everything else, things that slip through the cracks for a small town like Mayville, because we're just not staffed to stay on top of all of that. But I think it's a role that can pay for itself. My concern is, jumping full in on having a city administrator, and it is a huge cost, right? That is a large cost in bringing an administrator on board. But I'm also concerned about just so much change at once. And I'm a big believer in setting people up for success. One of the candidates that we had lined up for last week, unfortunately, she went with something else. She came from a background where she could have served as city clerk. They had a really strong skill set that would also allow her to serve as a chief administrative officer. So kind of a dual role. We'd pay more, but you'd get more, and it would still be less than having a full-time city administrator and a full-time city clerk. So that would have been the ideal solution. It just didn't work out that way.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to take a couple of questions that were submitted prior to today's meeting. They all messaged me. One of the questions that someone submitted was, what are your biggest challenges for you right now, not long-term?
Right this very moment?
Yeah.
The biggest challenges are, I actually have them kind of listed. So hiring key city roles, right? City clerk, that's mission number 1. The outcome of the Kikoski-Williamstown lawsuit puts us in a really difficult circumstance. We are landlocked. There are now there's very limited inventory inside the city of Mayville to build homes. One thing that went really well over the past 6 years was the city had implemented a residential construction incentive, and I took advantage of it. Several people came to Mayville, built a home. What I liked about the program is we took the volume of available inventory from 87 or so lots when the program started down to under 30. So we sold a bunch of lots, we built a bunch of homes, and we started recognizing revenue. I mean, aside from a 1 or 2 year tax incentive, those revenue proceeds are now starting to cycle in. So we're growing our tax base without having to increase people's taxes. The biggest challenge in being landlocked, and my biggest concern in us being landlocked, is how do you continue to evolve as a city and cover growing costs, huge inflation pressures. The best way to do it is to build houses, build homes, build apartments. Well, we're out of space. What do we do? So with that, a key next move is going to be, I always say, trust the experts. I don't think there's anybody on the planning commission. I don't think there's anybody on the common council that has the skill set necessary to define an urban plan when you're landlocked, right? It's a very unique problem. So I had the planning commission approve or recommend the council to approve submission of an RFP, a request for proposal, from some civic planning firms that can help us build a new comprehensive plan and help provide suggestions and advice on how can we find new revenue streams that don't involve raising your taxes.
Okay. Next question. How will you deal with the fact that Mayville is having trouble growing? Which that question was pretty
Yeah.
much answered
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on.
Sure.
Next question. We seem to have more issues with people parking cars on lawns, semis parking in front yards, private buildings in disrepair, roofs falling in, siding falling off, etc.
Yeah.
We have put money and efforts into improving the downtown storefronts, yet we don't seem to be putting any effort or resources into enforcing standards for private property owners. How will you address this?
It's a tough, it's a unique issue, and I would say that it's incumbent upon citizens to contact City Hall and call out specific instances where something needs to be addressed. If something is being done that isn't lawful, illegal parking, whatever it may be, we will look into it, we will address it appropriately. So again, communication and making the city aware of it. I'm not a big proponent for, big government putting its boot on your throat saying you must do it this way, you must do it that way. And you can't, regulate, or you can't create laws that encourage people to have good taste and not put, whatever, pink flamingos in the yard, whatever it is, right? You can't really do that. It's all subjective. So, in any case, if you have concerns, you're always able to contact City Hall and we'll route it to the right people and have it looked at.
Okay. Moving on. Continuing off of that person's question, are there any city ordinance regarding property owners' responsibilities to maintain their property? Who is responsible in the city for follow-upping on these issues? Is there a committee that handles this specifically?
We don't have a committee that handles it. I would say that we've had some instances that are brought to the planning commission when it deals with, say, code violations, and it might be, or a concern with a fence, or the type of fence, or the structure, or whatever it may be. It usually comes to the planning commission to be heard. And they do a good job at working on finding a solution that everybody can live with, hopefully.
Okay.
And as far as ordinances, I do want to point out on the city's website, there is a link. You'll see it E360. I believe it's at the bottom of the website. I usually look at it at the bottom of my phone. It's at the bottom of the website, but if you're on your laptop, it may be a different location, but every city ordinance is listed online and available to you online via E360. So, and it's got a search box. So I use it all the time. Somebody asks me a question like that. Generally what I do is go right into that E360 and do a search and get you an answer.
Okay. All right. Years ago, we used to have someone, I don't know if I should use this name, but her last name was Henridge, who would educate people on health matters. Does Mayville still have a city nurse? If not, are there any educational health resources available?
We do not have a city nurse. The county does have a health care person, or at least did in the past. But no, we don't. And again, it's one of these things. It'd be nice, lots of things would be really nice. How do you pay for it?
Right.
That's the challenge. I mean, their services, EMS does a lot of training. They may do, service to train people with CPR and those types of things periodically. I know you can get lifeguard training at the tag from time to time, but in terms of a city nurse, we do not have anybody on staff.
Okay. So your opponent has suggested doing away with aldermanic districts and moving into an all at-large system whereby councilmen would be located anywhere in the city. What are your thoughts on this topic?
I don't think it's the answer. I think it's, I would compare that to eliminating the electoral college on some level, right? I think people still rely on their alderperson to discuss issues or make issues that are relevant to their ward. They've got representation. Now, if I live in Ward 2, and if I have a bunch of neighbors that are super interested in serving on the common council, and we don't have representation, I don't think you want to have 6 aldermen from John Gwynn Street, serving on the council. It's just an imbalance there that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm certainly opposed to that. And the other thing that I would say is there are so many ordinances and statutes on the books as it relates to city government and how it's supposed to operate. Mayville lost its way over a period of years and not following ordinances properly and how they're supposed to do things. Not even necessarily understanding what is the role of aldermen. What are you supposed to be doing? How are you supposed to be representing your ward? And I think we've kind of to this world where people decide to run for office as a one issue person, right? And maybe that issue is their issue. It's their pet issue. It's not necessarily their ward's issue. And I really would, this is where I think communication would be really good. If we had a mechanism that provided aldermen the ability to, poll or ask questions of their wards and really represent the board's interests at the meetings, that would be a huge advance.
So following up on that, how would you, and I think Margie said the same thing. With that being said, and having, Alderman wards were open for a while, even before you came.
Yeah.
Ward 4 was very empty for a long time.
Yeah.
How do you engage the public on a public's level? Because at this point in time, not a lot of people are watching or paying attention.
Yeah.
How, on layman's terms, do you get the public to get in here? And is there more things that the city can do with putting more communication out in the sense of maybe having open houses on educating, throwing educational stuff out there for people to come and, be an alderman?
Yeah.
How would you incorporate that in?
So again, I think, communication channels, having the ability to both broadcast meetings and also have it available so you can consume the information at a later time is really helpful. There has been, actually, it's pretty cool. That laptop right there is the city's, that drives our YouTube channel. And so the administrator in YouTube can see incredible metrics around views and activity, and we get a lot of traffic on that site. And it's really a proud accomplishment of mine to have implemented that. Oftentimes I will hear from members of the community, hey, I don't want to come to meetings. I don't want to watch. I want you to tell me everything that's going on inside City Hall. And if you don't do that, if you don't serve it to my doorstep, you're not doing your job. And frankly, I disagree completely. It is, I mean, Sheree, like you do, you take it upon yourself to inform yourself and draw your own conclusions.
Yes.
All we can do is make the information available to people, readily available.
Mm-hmm.
But it's incumbent upon the citizen to participate in the process. And I think that because we have this and because people have seen what we've been going through and all of the activity that's been going on inside City Hall and the progress, people are becoming more willing to be involved.
All right, with the new college going up in Horicon, will the city look to partner with Horicon, local schools and the college for ways to collaborate on any projects that might come from it? Bringing in people from other towns, for instance.
Yeah. We have a very good relationship currently with the city of Horicon, their mayor, Josh Moss, great guy. We have mutual aid agreements with our, police services, fire services. We do a good job in working with them. If they're short, we help them out. Their officers will come out to back up our officers periodically. There's probably going to be a time where we're going to have to look at ways to partner with neighboring communities for things like coverage and service and as a way to more affordably provide the best in care and service for emergency services, as an example.
Okay.
So yeah, the communication is always open between us and Horicon, and there's certainly willingness to help each other out mutually, so.
Okay. So this one asks, if elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
Okay. So top 3 priorities, finish what we started. We have reestablished proper governance inside City Hall as it relates to the finances. It is night and day from where we were. Cameron Sawyer, we brought him in. He has helped us deploy what I would call best practices as it relates to the city's finances. And we're going to continue down that path. I mean, that is, you know, it's interesting. When we started doing our audit process last year and the problems started to really emerge and come forward, this suddenly became front and center. Like, we can't ignore this anymore. It's not an option. The toothpaste is out of the tube. We have to fix this. So we've made huge progress. We're getting really close. I believe that by this summer, we're going to have everything clicking along perfectly. So the finances, I want to continue to focus on the employees and making sure that they're happy with their work environment. They're getting what they need. I look at myself as a servant leader, meaning I'm here to serve the department heads and the employees. My role isn't to tell them what to do. They're the experts. We are so fortunate to have the department heads that we do. And my job is to do the blocking and tackling when they have a problem or issue that needs to be resolved. And I just want to help them be successful. We'll continue that. Hiring key roles, I mean, it is remarkably difficult to operate without a city clerk. And I've got to commend Christine Coulter, that works in the front office. She has been an absolute trooper. And I've got to be quite frank and say that my concern is that the city would lose Chris if we don't get the city clerk role filled quickly.
Next question also, there's a kind of meshes with one of the questions online here. Which this citizens says, we have heard many citizens complain about the lack of communication and lack of transparency. Some want more in communication via Facebook, while many who don't use Facebook want more communication via online, website, etc.
Yep.
There's many people online who state there's always the problem that you weren't communicating early on, and that seemed to be a huge problem with some. And you are communicating now, and it was before the OWL was up and running as well.
Yep.
You were still in that process.
Sure.
So this person and the person online are pretty much, what are your plans moving forward if reelected to enhance avenues of communication so that everybody can be on board, even if you're not, will this, be a place where it can communicate better?
It's a great question, and I love the question, and it was a priority coming in, and frankly, it got shot down by the council. Now, if you will go onto the city's YouTube channel, you will find a folder there that's for the communications committee. It's a communications committee that I asked the council to form. We put several people from the community that came from backgrounds that were relevant, that would help them assess. I mean, the marching orders were, what is the best way? What is the most effective way to offer a multimedia approach to getting information out to the community? And it could be enhancing our website. That's got to be done. It could be putting an app on people's phones. It can be the owls. It could be several things. It's the meeting management software. And there is a meeting that I attended of the communications committee where I gave my vision and view in a whiteboard presentation. And please go out and look at it because it really accurately describes my vision. I don't know if everybody understands or not that serving as mayor is a part-time job. And I am blessed with a fantastic career role that gives me a strong skill set that helps me be effective in doing this job. It's also very taxing from a time standpoint. Unlike many people, I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. I don't have TikTok. LinkedIn even drives me nuts because again, my day is meeting to meeting to meeting and I don't have time. It just becomes a time suck. So, some people find that unacceptable. And I also question, do you want me to just put messaging out there that I think you should hear?
Right.
And I can tell you that there's been as much or more misinformation that was communicated via Facebook in prior years than there was accurate information. So do you want to be informed or do you want to be misinformed? And that's a question I generally ask people.
Okay. So the next card question pretty much was answered early on. I will say what it was just to, so that that person doesn't think I'm ignoring them.
Sure.
It was, what was the plan to move what was the plan for further growth and economic development in Mayville? You
Yeah.
kind of talked about that early on. I don't know if you want to touch base a little bit on a specific subject on how to do that, but.
I do. I mean, partnering with organizations and resources at the state level has worked out really well. Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation loves Mayville. They serve Mayville very well, and they help fund some great projects inside the city of Mayville. Now, if you look at the way that it's worked out well for the city, if you look at the red brick school building or Albrecht Apartments that they're called now, we took an existing building, gutted it, and built beautiful apartments, and it's 2 blocks from Main Street. And so now you've got people that live on Main Street and they can go out, walk down Main Street, spend money at every shop up and down the street. And that's been fantastic. We have 2 businesses in town that have gotten grants from WEDIC for storefront enhancement. And one's starting right now down on Main Street as it thinks the martial arts studio on Main Street. I was talking with Rachel Smith at the pie shop. She had a meeting with WEDIC recently. They spoke to her about some additional grants and funding, and I'm putting Rachel on the CDA, and we want the CDA to be working with WEDIC and other organizations to find funding sources to continue to do those types of programming. So I'm not the hugest fan of government spending and handouts and everything else, but if those programs are there from the city, I would much rather, or from the state, I would much rather take advantage of those funds that are available from the state than to cover the cost out of our general fund.
Okay. Going into our next question, did you need a little break or anything?
Good.
Is it okay? You could tell me the time. I can't see the time
Yes.
online.
It's 2010.
Okay, we're good. All right. Before I go into the next question, has anybody thought of any questions before I move on?
I have a question.
All right.
Actually, I have 2 of them. One of them is, where are we with the sale of the library, the old library?
Yep. So, I can tell you that Quick Trip has stated they are not interested in buying the old library. Period. There are 3 businesses who are interested in the library, and they are potentially going to be making offers to the city. But we got to make a good choice in terms of what offer we accept and what's the right valuation to accept. So the council approved the listing of the old library at $425,000, I believe. That's how it's listed. Corey Kreezer is kind enough, or was kind enough, to offer his services as a realtor to do the listing at 0%. So that's saving the city money. So thank you for that. And we have closed session next week to talk about the listing price, and Corey's going to provide some insight to the council about different conversations he's had with some of these interested parties.
Okay, you said you had a second.
Well, I'm an election official. I work for the city for the elections. I have been for my 14 years. One of the requirements of an election official is we have to have a minimum of 6 hours of training. Do new alderpersons have a requirement to have some kind of training?
Right, so we recently, and this was an idea of Joe Tillman, a very good one, just again, instituted a requirement to do, once you get newly elected, get some training on Robert's Rules of Order. And then League of Wisconsin Municipalities has a conference that they make available for newly elected officials that's helpful. You all may recall that early last year, there was an HR investigation, the outcome of which was, I have a document that I received from our HR attorney that said, based on what we're seeing, here's some recommendations. One of the recommendations was to provide training to the Common Council on HR matters, on what's appropriate in terms of your conduct towards City Hall. Yeah, so I'll stop there, but yes, I mean, these are all important, and I think that, you know, as we start talking about this code of conduct and ethics, these are all gonna be a natural part, you know, of that process. The training will certainly help.
One of the questions that are pretty interesting, online here. She asks about the meeting minutes. Says however many years Mayville has been at least 6 months behind on posting online minutes.
Yeah.
I do find that very frustrating myself.
So, and I agree, right? So we are short-staffed. We do not have a city clerk, and that falls under the duties of a city clerk. Our interim city clerk or deputy clerk, Christine, is in charge of payroll, onboarding new employees, answering questions, everything. She's doing a million things at once, coming up to speed with the elections and everything else. I can tell you, she takes her job very seriously. There are minutes available for every meeting that we've had, and if a citizen at this time wants a meeting, they want the minutes, please contact City Hall and we'll get you the minutes. They are available. We do have them on file. Now, the second part of that is, what can we do to make it better? We are deploying a system that is going to manage all of our meeting agendas and all of our meeting minutes. And there's elements of artificial intelligence built into it. So it'll actually keep track of who made motions, how was the vote. And it's going to just automate that entire process. And like everything else, that the service is called eScribe. We're going through the configuration process on that right now. Once that's live, the problem takes care of itself.
So does that mean that most committees will have to be at City Hall to hold their committee meetings?
It means, well, I think most of the committees do meet at City Hall and utilize the OWL system. For specific reasons, as you know, Parks, we do that at the Tag Center, and we'll still continue to have them do those meetings at the Tag Center, but the minutes will be created in eScribe. And the minutes, the agenda will be posted in eScribe. And then the minutes, when they're completed by the chairman of the Parks Board meeting, when those meetings are completed, they'll be added to the eScribe database.
All right, hope that answered your question online there.
There's a question in the back here.
Okay.
Just to follow up on something that you had touched on, and we need to see them go back to the prior administration. The conflict between the village of Kikoski and Mayville as far as the land. I mean, it's been in court, and then it's gone to another court, and then it's been thrown back. Where are we in the process? Can you give us any update?
Sure. The update is this. The city of Mayville lost the case. Period, end of story. My focus since becoming mayor has been be a good neighbor to the best of our ability. I have met several times inside our city hall with the president of, Kikoski, Don Hilgendorf. We have a good working relationship. I can call Don anytime. He can call me anytime. We're cordial. It will take time to reestablish what I would say is a trustful relationship between our municipalities. But we can never lose if we just behave and act as a good neighbor and act in good faith towards our neighbors. And we hope that by doing that and continuing to do that, by building that trust, it's just gonna make for a better relationship ongoing. Mark?
Just one question here. Talking about expansion, we're talking about the expansion of more residential properties. I read in a recent report, a statement that there was some issues that you responded to involving the east side of Ribbons Field being turned into a residential neighborhood.
Yeah,
I know that it sounded like there was a lot of issues involving some people who were supposed to develop that.
yeah.
Is there any potential or any possibility or anything happening on that could still happen out there?
Yeah, I think that there is potential, but I gotta say, you know, the developers, I met with one developer in particular regarding that subject property. And after driving the area, he just indicated that they're not interested. So if you look at, so what many developers are doing, they're staying right along the 41 corridor. Because arguably, it just makes more sense, it's less expensive. I gotta tell you, when we built our house 6 years ago, our builder was from Slinger, and we did well on the house. But I can't imagine he made much of a profit on it, just based on, how inefficient it was to operate remotely like that. So there is infrastructure concerns over there, so fantastic. You want to put new laterals in and everything else, and we're gonna tie it into Green Bay Drive, what are we gonna do? It's just, it's a mess. So the problem we have is every residential project that we've looked at over the past year and a half, you can't make the numbers work. You just can't. They don't work. And so if the numbers don't work, does it make sense? And I've got to tell you, I say this all the time, my background in banking and in commercial lending and now as a mayor and working directly with developers, my experience in banking and everything else, developers by design wanted to take on as little risk as possible and put it all on the city to the greatest extent possible. And it just doesn't work that way. And the payout for you to get a return after you had to, by you, I mean the city had to invest $750,000 into something. And each house is gonna create $2,200, $2,500 a year in city's portion of property tax. The return on investment, pretty tough.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the next question. These are some interesting questions from everyone too. Is there any plans in the works to do anything with the Mayville sign that you see coming into Mayville from HorrorCon? The previous mayor put a sign in Mayville.
Yeah.
What is that, 30?
Main and.
Yeah. So, but nothing is in that area. They said that the grass usually is overgrown. Is that meant to be that way? Do we own that land?
Are they talking about that in the town coming in from?
Yeah, coming in from HorrorCon. I'm thinking they're like, on your way to Higley or something.
Yeah, it is the first time anybody's brought that question to me. So I can't answer without
No,
researching further.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I haven't.
However, please contact me, mayor@mayvilleCity.com if you want to talk. If you've got ideas, we're all ears.
Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. All right, so if reelected, other than the other two aldermen are found to be able to continue their terms or get reelected themselves, what steps do you take to ensure we keep a functioning government?
Yeah. So functioning government, my hope is that by putting together a stable council with people that aren't necessarily like-minded, but are willing to work together and finding a way to constructively disagree and still get work done, it's super important. And I've got to say that while the community has certainly seen some whoppers of meetings with council members and maybe me even standing up to certain behaviors of certain council members, there's an equal or larger number of meetings that are in the archive that you can go to that can show this council is capable of working together constructively with manners and courtesy and making good use of everybody's time. So it's simply a question of, are people willing to work together and get things done? Now, I've also reached out to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. They do have an organization that they've referred me to that is a part of the University of Wisconsin system. I've got a proposal and bid in from them to come work with the council on conflict resolution, code of conduct towards one another. How can we agree constructively, but more importantly, how can we disagree constructively?
That would have been nice if
And it would have been nice to have.
for
that
how
resource
all
available
candidates
a long
here
time.
for that, because that would show how to deal with conflict, show how they would deal with it.
Right,
Yes.
and whoever is elected mayor, whether it's myself or anyone else. What's interesting is my laptop, the mayor's laptop, that continues on to the next mayor. I've got emails from 27 years ago, it seems like. It's all in the email archive. So the information is in the mail of the mayor's laptop, and whoever is the mayor the next term, I would encourage them to work with that organization, engage with the council, and let's get it on track.
Okay. My phone's going back. Do you have your phone? Can you stream on? On my page? Oh, shoot, probably don't even have them. Yeah,
Are you out of
neighbor's page.
power?
Yeah, I'm about to die, and they're like.
Can we get you an extension cord?
Oh, yeah, an extension cord. Oh,
I'll do
that works.
Yeah, let's get you,
Shoot,
do you have a charger?
Oh, shoot.
Okay.
I think I left it in the car. I got it.
She's got it.
All right,
What
to
percent-
the rescue,
What percent
people.
are you at?
I'm at 5%.
Okay,
so-
sure. Gives me anxiety, just
Okay,
like.
I know. Okay, so you kind of addressed this a little bit, but this person wants to know what 3 specific steps would you take to put the city on firmer financial grounds? Oh, I guess my 5% was off.
You're done?
It's done, it's
Okay.
done.
All right, we'll get you.
Yeah,
We'll get you. We are on YouTube, so.
okay, well, hopefully they'll.
We're still going.
All right, so what 3 steps would you take to put the city on firmer financial grounds?
We are not ready to let go of, utilizing Cameron Sawyer, right? What I love about working with Cameron and what I love about having Tony work with Cameron is, he helps Tony become familiar with Wisconsin-specific matters. Cameron, the municipality that he works for, was in a very similar financial situation when he went to work there, and he helped turn that around. So we want to focus on how can we best utilize, Cameron as a support, resource for us ongoing.
Mhm.
We want to set everybody up for success. The next part of it is, we have already updated our Cassell, financial software. We are deploying several different modules within that software that are gonna make information much more readily available to the council members. We're starting to roll out proper, performance, budget performance to date reports, so we can track, by the end of June 30th, if you're at 80% of your budget at June 30th, that could be a concern. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But as long as the council can continue to receive good, meaningful reports with accurate data, we want to make that information available. The other side of it is, I believe it's important to have the council actively participate in the finances and really understand it. I mean, this is all, the common council drives the treasury of the city. The mayor's a part of the common council, but the only time the mayor gets to vote is when there's a tie. Right?
Mhm.
So, I think it is, well, I know it is important for a common council to take the initiative to learn and realize it isn't just show up every 2 weeks for a couple of hours and just show up and read your packet as the meeting is beginning. I mean, it's a roll up your sleeves, do the job and participate. And that's been a change. I think that the council in years prior was kind of lulled into not having to do much. The mayor, to his credit, did a ton, but it really kind of negated the involvement of alder persons to serve their particular wards.
That's a good question. Okay, where are we at with the financing of the new fire truck?
We are on April 8th, starting the process to do the bond issuance, the general obligation bonds to the city of Mayville that were approved in the budget process.
Mhm.
We have ordered the fire truck. We're expecting delivery in late October. I just learned this morning and talking to Julie Staffen that we are taking delivery of the new ambulance next week.
Nice.
Once the new ambulance arrives, then we've got to equip it with all the things that we need. So it's a very long answer to a short question. Where are we at in the financing of the fire truck? We're far along in that process, and it's coming to the council on the 8th. A secondary answer to that question I want to speak to is as it relates to capital improvement plans.
Mhm.
There is a historical practice the city had where, yes, when people say, former council members, former mayors say, we have a capital improvement plan, or we had a capital improvement plan, that's half true. And what I mean by that is they had spreadsheets that they would give to the department heads and put your wish list in and tell us what and why, and let's focus on what we need. But then it would just be, we keep kicking the can down the road. It's created problems for the city. Cameron Sawyer, I spent time with him reviewing the last audit. And what I love about, CPAs and finance people that are really sharp is they can look at a balance sheet and they can just tell you a story. You know what I mean? Like, they look at a number, they look at a cell inside an Excel spreadsheet and they say, that is a problem and here's why. And I'm a big believer in trust the experts. I can tell you that we neglected our infrastructure for many, many years. There are parts of our balance sheet that show it. And if we don't get that back on track and manage our capital projects appropriately, it is going to impact our ability to do bond issuances going forward. If we don't keep our fire apparatus up to date, it is going to impact insurance rates at the residential level and at the corporate level, right? And I can tell you that moving forward and ordering the fire truck, a very expensive thing to do, I sleep well at night because my question was never, do we have a high rise inside the city of Mayville? We don't have a tall building. What the heck do you need a fire truck? A ladder truck. Well, the answer is I don't want city employees walking around on the roof of a structure fire. Because if we had one firefighter fall through a roof, how much I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing we could have done something to keep them safe.
Great. Now, this next question pretty much talks about the city infrastructure development with the long-term vision. I think you kind of touched base on that as well. So I think we're going to move on from there. This next one says, how will you ensure that the voices of all city residents are represented in your administration? And I think you kind of touched that. It kind of rolls into the whole alderman having,
I really would like to get back to a model where citizens reach out to their alderperson directly with their concerns as the first point of contact. And then let the alderperson bring it to the mayor's attention, and let's work together and find a way to solve the problem in your specific ward.
Sorry,
That's okay.
my daughter keeps calling me. This is what happens when you have too many kids. Um, Okay. So this one is, what forms or platforms will you utilize to foster a dialogue between the citizens and city officials, which we kind of covered with
Yeah.
that as well, but I just wanted to
Yep,
put that out there,
Sure.
so I don't want them to think I'm not taking, telling their questions.
yeah,
This is a great one. We need to educate the next generation to prepare them for them to accept leadership positions in the future. What strategies will you employ to encourage youth involvement in civic affairs?
sure. That's a great question.
That is a great.
Yeah, it's a
question.
fantastic question. We're already kind of doing that. So we have worked with the high school, putting together a couple of internships, and we have, members of the high school come in and help inside City Hall. So they get kind of a feel and perspective of day-to-day operations within the city. And I think there's more things that we can do to partner with the community. Understand that many of the assignments that are available for the community, the requirement is you're 18 years or older, right, to serve in certain capacities, but there's plenty of work, to be done, and, certainly would be happy to field any suggestions people might have to encourage involvement from younger folks.
That's good. I mean, parents can also encourage good, healthy involvement with civics as well.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
This next question that we kind of touched based on, a lot of these kind of go into each other. How will you ensure the city's council meetings are productive? You already kind of touched that on the
Yeah.
hiring of like a group.
Sure, yeah.
To kind of help
just
with
provide
that.
some training on that. Yep,
Yeah.
Yep,
Next question, what will you do to hold yourself accountable and your administration accountable to the public?
okay. In what sense? You know what I mean? It's a very subjective
is.
question, and I'm not sure that I can.
It is, and I'm thinking that has a lot to do with possibly, communication, or
Yeah.
kind of like how you, held yourself accountable for a statement you made on Facebook.
Sure, of course.
You took responsibility for that and you addressed it.
Yeah.
And some people in the past wouldn't address their mistakes, but.
Look, there is, without question, I have learned a lot over the past 2 years serving as mayor of Mayville. And the more scenarios and cycles that you go through, the more knowledgeable, or that I go through, the more knowledgeable I become on what's a better way to handle it going forward. There's a few things that I do on a regular basis. I mean, if we talk about, my philosophy around leadership, or my philosophy around, working with people. So there's a great book, my latest favorite business book of late. In fact, I made reference to it here. It's called Extreme Ownership. It's by Jocko Willink. He's a former Navy SEAL. And what he talks about is succeeding in leadership in spite of obstacles. I'm not one to say I can't get something done because X. It is incumbent upon me to say, there's an obstacle here. I've got to get around it. I've got to get over it, or whatever it is. And it's my responsibility to do that. There's no excuses. So it's just a philosophy that I have. I have a level of stick to it that maybe is uncommon. I don't know, but I have gotten a lot of questions over the past couple of years, like, why do you do it? Why do you stay at it? Why haven't you quit? Well, the answer is because I'm not a quitter. I don't quit. I'm here to do a job. I am obligated to make sure that state statutes are followed and the city operates well. No excuses. And that's just the way I do it.
We kind of touched base on this also. How will you promote ethical conduct within the city government? Will you continue to use the surveys as tools to get feedback for performances of elected officials and city government?
I think it would be a great idea to do that employee survey on an annual basis. The way that it was done this time around was probably not as formalized. In fact, that survey went out without my knowledge in advance. So I kind of found out after the fact that it had gone out. But I think we should do it every year, right? And I don't think the goals are twofold. One, we want our employees to know that their voices are heard. We want them to know they have a seat to the table and they get to provide input. We want council members, the mayor and all 6 alderpersons to be held accountable because we've got to treat our employees the right way. And besides that, if you don't measure it on an annual basis, how do you know if you're getting better or how do you know if you're getting worse?
It's true. Okay, which measures will you implement to ensure that your administration's decisions are data-driven and evidence-based?
That's a good question. Data-driven and evidence-based. You know, when topics come up to the council for consideration, there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes to make sure that we are using, relevant data. It is based in fact. If somebody had a suggestion, what would help me a lot with that would be to ask a follow-up question of, can you be more specific? Tell me an example or provide me an example of something that council has done or might do that requires something to be data-driven.
Well, I got something.
Yeah, please.
What kind of data did you guys gather for placements for the new EMS building, let's per se?
No, great question. So, so I can tell you again, trusting the experts, I rely heavily on Christine Churchill. I rely heavily on Brad Marks. I rely heavily on the police chief, Ryan Tollner, to provide their perspective and thoughts as it relates to delivering emergency services for the city of Mayville. So when we initiated the grant request to proceed with the EMS building, the requirement was you had to name a piece of property. And so it makes sense. So you're not taking property off the tax roll or purchasing new property. It makes sense to take property that you already own as a city, right? So that was an easy pick, but we can amend the location. And I think that we'll make it clear that's something people can participate in. Likely there would be hearings. The location is important. My vision is Mayville first. I can tell you in my personal life, I have benefited beyond measure from the accessibility of our EMS division, right, or department. How long ago was that? 2 years? 2 years ago, my mom had a massive medical event. EMS was at the house within 5 minutes. The police department was in the house in 5 minutes. My wife, the ER nurse, was also there. My mom's alive today specifically because of Mayville EMS. And I want everybody inside the city of Mayville to feel confident in the emergency services that we provide and we deliver the highest quality. Now, I also want to say this about EMS, because my wife works in the ER, she interacts with EMS from around the county in different communities, and she will say, Mayville EMS is top notch.
Awesome.
So we should feel really good about that. And I know I feel very confident in supporting them and doing everything I can to help our emergency services be successful.
Okay. Quick question from online here. Says there has been a lot of hard feelings floating around surrounding the election.
Yeah.
Is there anything Gwen, since there's no other two here, feels he has in common with the other candidates? Anything that you guys can agree on, let's say?
Yeah. So I will tell you, Joe Tillman impressed me once I started working with him on the budget. Common sense approach, good thinker, easy to work with, open to learning. He made mistakes, but he was open when I called him on it, said, look, we can't do it that way. He's really receptive. So I was disappointed to see Joe Tillman leave the council. And I would say that many of the things that Joe Tillman wants to accomplish with his vision are similar to my ideals. And I'm disappointed he's no longer on the council because frankly, that seat gives you more ability to drive those types of initiatives than the mayor role. Rob Bell did some great things while he was mayor. I point out the residential incentive. That was a good program. We've worked together constructively. We don't see eye to eye on many things, and that's okay. We certainly should have had all three candidates here tonight, and I'm disappointed in their decision to not attend, because I don't think that the audience or the participants, it would not have been
Yeah,
chaos.
I agree.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do one more online. Oh, this is interesting one. Are we able to concentrate on getting a small shopping center in town? No. We have Main Street, go to Main Street, sorry.
Yeah.
My bad, okay. Yeah, don't answer that. We miss Shopto too, but we got Main Street.
Yeah.
We got, and other parts of the streets, we got some good shopping. We'll see about that later on. Okay, so we did this one. This one kind of goes back in because we were already talking about public safety with the EMS, but do you feel that there are what do you feel are the three most pressing public safety issues facing Mayville now and or in the near future? How would you address these if reelected?
Sure.
Just to follow up on that, I know someone on Facebook before mentioned paraphernalia and drug use.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
So, there's so much to speak on about this. I want to make just a couple of notes, make sure I hit on it all,
Yep.
so.
Yep.
I want to speak first about our police department. So in serving as mayor, you become privy to information on what kind of investigations are occurring. The amount of crime that occurs inside the city of Mayville is pretty scary. It's eye-opening. The type of crime is equally eye-opening. And I would tell you that I have concerns about our police officers when they're dealing with a child pornography case, or they're dealing with a child abuse case, and I worry about their mental health, right?
Mhm.
And I want to commend my pastor, Mark Cutler from St. John's, who now helps the police department with counseling and speaking with the officers. And what he did that I think I would encourage anybody in the community to consider is he went through the Citizens Police Academy. And so if you're interested in seeing firsthand what our police officers deal with day in and day out, and by the way, our police officers are phenomenal. I've been talking a long time, and so my brain is starting to race a little bit, but in any case, sign up for the Citizens Academy and it'll be a real eye opener, number one. When it comes to the EMS and the fire department and the police department, the number one concern I think is really calling. So we used to report every single month, the council would have a presentation from fire chief, police chief, EMS, this is what our call volume looked like. Here's how it looks year over year versus last year. And I'm gonna tell you that chart is going like this.
Wow.
I don't know what's happened in the world, but everybody calls for everything now. So the call volumes are up the chart. I'm gonna tell you there's an issue with the fire department. I'm 54 years old. I don't want to be climbing on ladder trucks or anything else. And I think in the fire department, I might be one of the young ones if I was 54 years old serving in the fire department. So, we've got to plan for the future. We've got to be able to recruit. We got to have a plan so that we can continue to offer the excellent services that we do offer. Miraculously, in spite of the fact that recruiting is hard for the fire department, we routinely have, 12 guys that show up every single time. And it's cool at the end of the year. I get signed all the certificates of all the fire department personnel and how many calls they went on, how much training they attended. I mean, the dedication from all of our EMS folks is phenomenal. So I'm disappointed in the council. A number of months ago, they opted to have the department heads stop giving their presentations to the council. And I don't think that serves the community well, and I don't think it serves the departments well. So we need to reinstitute those reports and the presentations from the emergency services folks to the council. And it helps the people see live too.
Yeah, because I don't think a lot of people, I mean, I never even knew that happened. I mean, I wouldn't want that to happen. If my alderman did that, that's not something that I would want.
Yeah, that
as a
happens.
citizen.
And I guess, and again, our police department is top notch. Our officers are professional. They would jump off of a cliff for you. I mean, they're just amazing. And we had an instance, a number of months ago where there was nearly an officer involved shooting. And I can say that the person that was involved, the suspect or whatever, it's probably really fortunate to be alive today. Just based on the fact that our officers are so professional and work so well together. So we should be thankful for that.
Okay. You want to take a break?
I'm
You're
good.
good?
Yeah,
All
I'm
right, we're gonna keep going.
good. How many questions do we have left?
Do you
Oh,
have other items you wanted to talk about? You made a few other notes on.
Oh, I'm gonna, oh,
Safety.
yeah, so the call volumes, the crime level, recruitment is super important, right? So I think I covered all of it. Yeah, thank you.
okay. Like, we almost have like 30 questions. Okay, this one. Mayville has numerous retirees with the cost of living, inflation, and property taxes continue to increase. What are your thoughts on how to keep the elderly in their homes?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There are a couple of projects that have been done inside the city where a developer built some side-by-side homes. It's off of Mary Street. Very successful projects. And if there is a way for us to incorporate more like post-retirement living, like friendly living for retirees, I'd like to see that happen. But again, that is a tough one, just based on the fact right now that we're landlocked. And that is certainly a priority.
Okay. Okay, so we did touch base on the system for communications and streamlining, so I'm not ignoring your question if you're listening. He did talk about the technology and having incentives and implementing with your communication, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. Okay, this one says, how much was the final bill for the sickage? Also, how much was the bill to hire the HR attorney to investigate the two aldermen? I don't know if I need to say their name.
No, you don't.
Okay.
The sickage investigation itself, I will tell you that the sickage investigation, we had approximately 15 matters that were sent for investigation, but the instructions to Sikich were, and I consider those to be chapters, right? So we had 15 chapters that we needed Sikich to write.
Mhm.
The first chapter was around Slag Road and a resolution that was found, and if you read the Sikich investigation, there is evidence that shows that a resolution was signed without the council actually having approved a resolution. And if that's wrong, there is absolutely no paperwork or corroborating information inside City Hall that would prove otherwise. Which is exactly why you want to have good record keeping inside City Hall, that you've got to have paperwork to match GL entries. So that was chapter 1. And chapter 2 was the CDA. CDA, the financial records of the CDA were pretty murky in terms of how funds were coming in, how funds were going out, what were the source of the funds. The CDA was originally established with the help of Ellers, which is our financial advising firm that works with us.
Mhm.
And it was all completely by the book, but as time went on, we kind of started venturing into things and throwing money around and so that needed to be researched. The city never proceeded further with the investigation. The council shut it down.
Okay.
There's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. There's still bad records that probably need to be brought forth to the council to say, how do you want to address this? How do we fix it? How do we properly document what actually happened?
Mhm.
So that's in the works, and I'm rambling, so I want to ask, what was it?
Yeah,
Just kind of repeat,
so-
keep me on track.
Okay, so it was mainly just kind of wanting
Oh,
to know the cost.
Yeah.
The cost of the city, because
Yep.
the city has been dealing with a lot of lawsuits.
Yep.
You know, even reaching back, you know, from prior
Yep.
administration, so we're just kind of wondering how much
The
is it?
Sikich investigation, for the investigative part, the Sikich investigation, I think was somewhere in the $15,000, $20,000 range, and I will verify that
Okay.
and report on it. Now, we were without a comptroller treasurer for a number of months as well, and in lieu of paying a comptroller treasurer, the council voted to have us hire Sikich to provide interim services as comptroller treasurer. So over a period of, say, 6 months, that's what Sikich did. Once we got Tony Meeks on board and we got Cameron working with us, we were able to break away from Sikich for that purpose. So all in all, I think the city spent about $75,000 for Sikich in 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And the HR investigation, $4,500.
Then,
Can I ask a question?
oh, yes, go ahead.
Jackie Langsford.
Okay,
So even though we spent that money on sickage, that was really, some of those funds were offset because we were short staffing that we weren't.
Yes,
using at
that's
that
exactly
time
right.
Also, so it wasn't like we were running a deficit there and putting money out,
No,
because we were also not paying salaries because we didn't have certain people on staff.
that's exactly right. I mean, so we were, very cautious about how we spent money with Sikich. We spent the money appropriately. We delegated to them, this is what needs to be focused on. And again, we were being guided by law enforcement and what they wanted us to do. The detail involved and the sophistication of some of these financial transactions, it takes a lot of time to really get an understanding of what happened. So if you read the signature report, they're gonna show you, they show exactly what they researched, what they found, and they cite time and time again that the city was not acting with good governance as it relates to record keeping and properly accounting for things inside the GL. And I do want people to remember that when this all came about, we were essentially flying through a cloud bank. And the city was kind of operating as though well, there's checks in the checkbook, so we must be okay. When I first became mayor, I met with the comptroller treasurer at the time, and I said, well, where are we at with the account reconciliation? So balancing the checkbook, city has roughly 16 checkbooks, 16 checking accounts. Where are we at? She said to me, I have not reconciled the accounts in over a year. Haven't balanced a checkbook in over a year. And I said, why not? She said, because I didn't know I was supposed to. So this is what we walked into. I am happy to report that our checkbooks are fully reconciled today. Mr. Meeks, great work.
I did about today.
So we're good, right? So this is progress. What has occurred over the past year, without question, stressful. It was challenging. And I've never backed off from stating that it was absolutely necessary. And I'm going to tell you that if I had not intervened after these audit issues were coming about, ultimately we were going to run out. We would have crashed into the side of the mountain. I'm fully convinced.
Okay, so this is coming from online. Well, I guess this is something the citizens kind of want to know. They want to know why the 2 library board members were removed.
The 2 library board members were removed. I have 2 other members that I intend to put on the library board in their place, but both of the people that were removed also still serve on Friends of Mayville Library, and we're very much a part of, you know, that the new library coming on board and online.
This next question kind of goes into still wanting to know how much certain things were spent on last year. Nolan, with, you know, if you could talk about how the city spends money for, you know, how much alone are we paying for Nolan? And then something about going into the Baker Tilly report.
Yeah.
Not being able to get it to the council members in about a 4-month time.
Is this an anonymous question or is there a name on this question?
There's no names. But it is interesting.
Yep. Yep. All that information is readily available to the public, and if you would like it, submit a request to City Hall and we'll compile the information.
Okay, and with that being said, just the Baker Tilly and Nolan costs of them, is that also rolled up with, like, does that separate out from the rest of the investigations when,
Yeah.
or when you guys are using him here?
So
How does that amount, where does that cost for using him come from?
Baker Tilly is our audit firm.
Mhm.
It is reasonable to expect that every year we're gonna spend about $30,000 to $35,000 for their services to do our annual audit. The requirement to do the annual audit is primarily driven by the city's practice of borrowing. You have to be able to have good audits in order to have the right bond rating and do the borrow. I can tell you that historically, what was happening is Baker Tilly was our annual auditor, but Baker Tilly was also, because of what was going on inside City Hall and the lack of expertise on the financial side, they were doing entries for the city of Mayville, and we were spending $80,000+ a year on Baker Tilly. Now, I know they are auditor with Baker Tilly, John Rader. I speak to him on a regular basis, and he would acknowledge that they weren't even comfortable having that level of, you know, ongoing engagement with our day-to-day journal entries. So, and give you an example. So when you do an annual audit, if you had 2 or 3 or 4 adjusting entries as a result of the audit, that's to be expected. We had dozens of entries as a result of the audit, because we were just not, it was not being done correctly.
Right,
So, so we're saving money going forward
that's it.
today,
Yeah.
right? I spoke with Baker Tilly, I spoke with, Cameron Sawyer, I said, Cameron, when we do our audit, and we're involved in the audit process right now, are we gonna show improvement? And their answer is, we're already seeing the improvement, right? And that's really good. What's important going forward is we have the right blend of staffing inside City Hall with, and designating people doing, tasks that are appropriate for them to do. So your comptroller treasurer is gonna take care of this, your city clerk's gonna take care of that, and your 2 deputy clerks are gonna take care of accounts payable, whatever it may be. If we better delegate, we're gonna operate more efficiently.
And this one, I'm guessing, is coming from So I don't know the background of this question, so it's kind of hard to ask, because it's not really a question that all candidates would know.
Yeah.
But just possibly you and if Rob was here, he would maybe understand, but I guess it's wondering where some land sale papers from Metalcraft disappeared from.
So. Without question, the record keeping inside City Hall was atrocious. I can't answer where the records are. I can tell you that it is concerning to me that I'm as concerned about the volume of missing information and missing records as I would be in finding a resolution that was falsified and signed illegally. There's equal, so we're kind of like, we have a problem in that some of our records look really sketchy and some of our records don't exist. And if they did exist, we'd be able to corroborate whether or not something is sketchy or not. So I know a question came up via planning the other night, the planning commission meeting. There was a question related to the sale of property and an incentive to a local company, and they were coming to get their project plans approved. And so I brought up the point, well, they took advantage of a program the city had the city has a set program where you can buy acreage from the city for $1 an acre, so long as the valuation of what you're building, the improvements on that property are gonna allow the city to create revenue and it'll be paid back in a short amount of time. So, so the question came up, where's the contract, the sales contract, and nobody, we found it this morning. So we found it, we've got we've got the development agreement. Everything looks good and that project is gonna be able to continue forward. I just need to catch up with the business owner tomorrow to discuss. There's a question in the back.
What's happening with the Shopko building?
The Shopko building is, I don't have any new information or new news about what the plans are or anything going on with the Shopko building. I know we asked to have the old Shopko signage removed and it was removed. People have asked questions about some storage containers and whatnot being put on there. But do you have anything more specific about your question about the Shopko building?
No, I just like Shopko.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's.
So, yeah, that's over. That's over. Yeah, those those Shopko buildings, they're around the country, or at least the Midwest. It happened in a lot of communities, so it's unfortunate it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Do we have any other audience questions? Thought of anything?
What are some of your regrets?
My regrets. That's a great question. You know, I 100% stand by the city going to extraordinary lengths to get the finances right and get the books right. I regret that it had to happen so quickly. Meaning we had to act so quickly because of that, because of the investigation and because of the potential for losses and because we were kind of flying through a cloud bank, there was not the time or the ability to do effective change management. People don't like change. Sometimes they don't like things to stay the same, and you can't, but if you have the ability to communicate openly in advance to say, look, we're gonna make some big changes and here's why, and here's what you can expect. It would have been nice if we had that luxury to do it, so.
With Mayville being landlocked, do you see that you could be in that position again, where you'd be forced over landlocked, so we have to make the snap decision?
No, I mean, look, if you were to ask me about the landlocked issue, I really believe that the dispute could have been handled diplomatically. And everybody would have had to have given something up and, but we wouldn't be where we're at right now. We spent $200,000 on attorney's fees for nothing. And it's unfortunate. So my primary concern in being landlocked is we don't have control over the economy. We don't have the control over the inflation. We have to make good, solid financial decisions, and we have to be able to cover the costs of the city with minimal impact to property taxes. So you just have to be more efficient, more effective, more thoughtful as we look at solving problems and issues and look for other sources of funding and other ways to raise revenue that don't include raising your property taxes.
Okay, we're gonna take one last question online. He asked about the appointed aldermen's making major decisions right now.
Such as,
He didn't specify, but I mean, if you want to address, I guess, their abilities
Yep.
and
well, look,
to be able to make those major decisions.
sure. We received guidance from a very strong law firm, Madison, Wisconsin, that specializes in municipal government. While 2 aldermen are serving their suspension and while we have interim aldermen in place, it is the city's practice and best practice to not engage in starting some new initiative that, we're gonna try to ramrod through, if you will, in this time period. We're gonna focus on getting the business done that needs to get done. My primary concerns right now, and I've alluded to these several times, they're just things that couldn't wait. We've got to get this workout arrangement done with the developer on Dayton Street. We got to do that. I can't sign any agreement without a full council, approving it. We had to fill the council because we had no representation for at least half of the city.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
Right.
So we addressed that. We are sticking to business as usual, getting a city clerk hired. That interview last week was great. You've got a council that is comprised of people that want to participate. They take time to understand the topic. They do their homework. They're doing things to the best of their ability, coming from a good place.
Okay. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. If you wanna go ahead and do your closing statement,
Yeah.
you would have had enough time for all of them to do it, but you can go ahead and put your closing statement in, and then that'll be the last question online as well.
Thank you to everybody online, for asking all the great questions, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's been very enjoyable. My voice is about gone, but we'll be all right. So, in closing, I just have a little bit of a closing speech. I just want to say, to the citizens, guests here tonight, my family members, my friends, it has been a pleasure to be here tonight with all of you, both in person and on YouTube and Facebook Live. It's truly an honor to be your mayor, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve this remarkable community in which we live. It's a great place. And this is an experience for which I'll forever feel grateful, being your mayor. 3 years ago, it was in this room at the conclusion of a CDA meeting where Rob Bell pulled me aside right over there and he said, since I'm not running again, you should run for mayor. So I gave it some thought, and I figured if I'm gonna do so, I better do my homework and dedicate a lot of time before making such a serious commitment that, my family is impacted by, that my career is impacted by. So what I did is I spent the next 11 months attending nearly every single city commission, board, common council meeting, committee meeting, so that I can make an educated decision whether or not I had what it takes to serve in this capacity, from a time perspective, from a knowledge base, and also just kind of understanding how things work inside city government. I studied political science in college. I loved it. I hate politics. I cannot say it any more clearly than I hate politics. It is a nasty, nasty game. I find it amusing when my opponents play politics, political games, and do nasty political things against me. And when I do a political maneuver, they act like Major League Soccer player that just got shot by a sniper rifle. That part's kind of amusing, but in any case, it's now been 2 years since I was elected to serve. I've made quantum leaps forward in my level of experience specific to being mayor. As your mayor, I promised to prioritize the well-being of our community above all, to ensure that decisions made were for the benefit of everyone, not just a select few. Integrity isn't just a word in our city's ethos, it's the standard by which we measure our actions. It is about doing what's right, even when it's the more challenging path to tread. As the son of a retired cop, that message was ingrained into me, into every fiber of my being over the past 54 years. Integrity is everything. And in a career working for a global software company providing services to many of the leading banks in the United States, I receive extensive training and certifications each year regarding business ethics, regulatory compliance, risk management. While I certainly do not claim to be a perfect person, and never will I be a perfect person, I do always strive to do things the right way for the right reasons. I bring the skill set Mayville needs today in order to right the ship. Just like Rob Bell brought the skill set the city may have needed 8 years ago when he was first elected mayor. I trust the experts on legal matters and financial matters, both in my personal life and in my work life, and I do the same as mayor. And the positive impacts are clear. I was able to keep the city running when obstructionists were trying to prevent it from doing so. I restored our financial systems from what was a nearly unrecoverable nosedive just a year ago. I have never quit when the times got tough. I've never quit. And that's in my DNA. I'm not a quitter. No matter what my harshest critics would say, I've done a great job coming from a good place to do the right thing with the hand that I was dealt. The next 2 years, if reelected, I'll further cement the progress made so that we are less likely to devolve to where we were when Rob Bell left office. My question to you is this. Is it wise to entrust the correction of the city's ailing governance and finances to the man, Rob Belk, who played a significant role in getting the city in the bad spot in the first place? If Rob Belk is elected, of course, I will accept the outcome and hope he does well. I will work with him any way I can to help him be successful, teaching Rob what I know about restoring proper governance within City Hall. Without question, if Rob Belk is elected for another term, he will come into a City Hall that is in much better shape today than when he left 2 years ago. And I'm proud of that. The fact is, whether I win this election or not, I clearly see the blessing in either scenario. So I consider myself fortunate, win or lose. Thank you all for coming tonight. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve Mayville faithfully as its mayor. And I ask for you to vote for me to serve another term so that I can continue to work in restoring the city's governance to be something you can all be proud of. Thank you.
All right, thank you online. You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yeah, no problem.
Great job.
Oh, long night. Long night. Go home before the snow starts.
After midnight. It's not gonna start coming.